fantastic week. Today, we are going to be talking about something that most people don't even know is a thing, which is scheduler's remorse. Many of you, yesterday, I was talking to a gentleman who was having a really hard time converting his evaluations into cash packages. And he wasn't having any discussion around what his rates were. He wasn't doing any pre-framing that would allow his prospects to know that packages are the way that you do business. And the result was people showing up to their evaluation, not having a clue what to expect, and having already decided that they weren't going to commit to anything. They were just coming in for information, which is the most costly type of patient you can allow to have on your calendar. Why does this happen? It's called scheduler's remorse. So if you're watching this right now, make sure to smash the like and love button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And as always, if you get value out of this, make sure to share it with a friend, colleague, or family member that you think would benefit from our cash physical therapy advice around improving health, building wealth, and giving back to our communities. Ben, how you feeling today, man?
Doing good. I'm excited for this one. There's there's nothing worse than getting a patient scheduled for an evaluation, then they end up canceling because of scheduler's remorse. And this can happen also at the evaluation too. So there's two different stages at this. So I'm excited to talk about this because I know it's a bottleneck in a lot of practices.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about what scheduler's remorse is. We've all heard of buyer's remorse, right? Well, people experience the exact same kind of decision fatigue, the exact same kind of fear and regret once they actually schedule a time block on their calendar that requires their in-person presence at a business where they're not 100% sure they're actually going to be using and leveraging their time effectively. And so when we don't immediately validate our prospects and make them feel like they made the correct decision, if we don't proactively crush scheduler's remorse within our process, what we're left with is high cancellations, high no-shows, or even worse, as we said, people showing up for their evaluation, but no matter how good of a job you do, they've already mentally committed to the not moving forward, and you're going to get a lot of objections like, oh, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need to think about it, I need to check my finances, because they've already committed to one decision, and as convincing as you might be, they might be considering it, but they're not going to allow themselves to make a decision in that moment because they've already committed. And so we have to squash that earlier in the process. So, Ben, have you ever had a time where you started to realize it's like, oh man, we got to do something to make sure that we're pushing away the wrong people and making sure that we're doing a little bit more on the front end to get people showing up with the right mentality and the right energy for their eval?
Yeah, and it goes to like this occurred quite a bit at the beginning stages. Definitely like during that first year, I was working so hard to get these leads in the door, like from doing workshops, getting out in the community, stuff like that. It was just disheartening to do all that front work, get them on the phone, and then just have them cancel their evaluation or get an evaluation and then just end up not moving forward, right? You're grinding so hard for all these leads and then you're not making the most of it. So it just feels like a leaky bucket is what it comes down to.
Right. And the thing that a lot of people run into, especially when they start to scale their practice running paid ads, is they think that every single lead is a bad lead because they're not answering the phone, they're not showing up to their appointments, or they're showing up and they're not willing to commit to their packages. And this is a normal and natural conclusion to jump to because after all, up until that point, up until you started scaling your practice, most people showed up and most people bought packages. But what people don't realize, most cash practice owners don't realize, is that they've been lulled into a false sense of accomplishment with how good their sales systems actually are. Because until you start marketing to cold pockets of your community, people who don't know who you are and might not know that physical therapy is the solution that they need, up until that point, you're selling to referrals. You're selling to people who have known you through the community. You're selling to people who have gotten to know you through a workshop. And those are much, much warmer audiences that are much deeper within the buyer journey. Once we start to grow and scale our practice, especially once you start hiring and you start needing to acquire more and more leads, you're going to start to reach more skeptical pockets of people. And so we need to have systems. We need to have strategies. We need to have experiences in place designed to get people who are skeptical to not only say yes to showing up and schedule, or to not only say yes to scheduling an appointment, but also getting them to show up for that appointment. So for us, that all starts with the marketing side of stuff, making sure that we're putting out the right content that is going to set the right expectation for folks. Ben, did you ever put out like free discovery visits? I know we've been pretty strong advocates to like never doing that in the cash physical therapy game, but I'm curious if you ever did.
Yeah, no, I did that like the first 3 or 4 months starting out, and it's okay to get traction, but in my opinion, it's just if you do a good enough job on that phone call, it should serve as that free discovery visit in person without wasting your more of your time, more or less. So we just transitioned to doing a much better job on that first phone call where we didn't need to have to do those free discovery visits in person anymore, and it's just much more efficient, especially as you start growing a team and whatnot. It's pretty costly to have them come in for free discovery visits and not convert, because you still have to pay that physical therapist. So it's okay when you're a solo practitioner and really just want to get everybody in, but to really grow and scale, it's not really a feasible option. There's a better way, and that's just doing a better job on that first phone call.
100%. I mean, that first phone call is literally the framework that you designed, without a doubt, has transformed lives. Cole Boland, who I interviewed yesterday within the Cash Physical Therapy headquarters Facebook community, he increased his revenue from $5,000, $6,000 a month. And he was stuck there for over a year, just trying everything he can to knock on doors, get people to refer to him. He tried a little bit of online stuff, but none of it was consistent. And then he learned how to, one, restructure his packages and his visits, but how to communicate those over the phone and how to present them during that initial eval. And the guy's doing $25,000 a month now. And it's only been 60 days since we started working together, which is absolutely crazy. But it's because of that first call script. And so before we kind of go in and pick Ben's brain about the specifics around that, with the marketing, preventing schedulers remorse starts with the very first interaction. And so we make sure that we are only promoting either full paid services or discounted services, but it's always going to be a paid service because we don't want freebie seekers chasing us down. We want to make sure that there's people who are willing to commit to cash to solve their problem. How much cash actually doesn't really matter that much. A lot of people think that if you put out a $47 voucher versus a $97 voucher, you're going to get much lower quality leads. This isn't necessarily true. You're going to get the higher the price of the voucher you're advertising, the higher the cost per lead is that you're going to have. So that just means you're going to get fewer opportunities to sell a package. When you do a $47 voucher, you get substantially more people interested in paying cash, and there's more people that come through. But when you know how to optimize your marketing, when you know how to have the conversations that we're going to talk about next over the phone, you can actually find that there are a tremendous number of people that are willing to pay cash rates. And we just need to put out a bait that is low cost enough to give us the volume that we need, but high cost enough to push away the people who are pretty cheap and don't want to invest in their health. So on the marketing side, preventing schedulers remorse starts with finding that right sweet spot between, like I said, an offer that is cost something, that is expensive enough to push away the cheap people, but low enough to keep our cost per lead down so that we get the volume and more opportunities to allow our first call close rate and booking rate to take care of the rest. Because we have a really good booking rate, then we just want more opportunities to feed that person that's doing the bookings. Anything to add on top of the kind of the front end portion of schedulers remorse, Ben?
Yeah, there's a lot of people I've heard say, "Oh, yeah, you need to be charging, 150, 200 for those Facebook vouchers and whatnot. Oh, I'm not going to discount my front end, my service." I'm like, well, it's a front end service. It's as long as if you have your sales process dialed in, you'll make that money up on the back end. It's just giving yourself more opportunities. Like we have clients that do $49 vouchers, some do 75, some do 99. You're just going to have fewer opportunities with the 99. We've always done the 47 to $49 range voucher because we have a dialed in phone process and sales process. And so I know if we can just get more at bats, we're going to be able to get more. Our ROI is going to be better. We'd rather have those opportunities than not. I think sometimes people hide behind their poor sales skills
Right.
behind like a higher front end offer because they're just not proficient on it. And so that's the lowest hanging fruit is getting better at the sales process.
Right. And that could honestly be an entire podcast episode in and of itself, because a lot of people just, they're so they're so brainwashed into trading their time for money that return on investment isn't something that they can even wrap their head around. Because I can't tell you how many people have broken down the math on where it's like, hey, if your booking rate is this and your package eval to package conversion rate is this, and we get this many people through it, the profitability on that back end is substantially higher than if you put this expensive thing on the front end that doesn't give you enough patient volume for your conversion rates to even work out. And it's the people who like look at the math and understand return on investment or return on effort that don't battle this at all. But the people who are so locked into this trading time for money game, they're just sabotaging themselves, not only within their business and within their lives, but within their own marketing. And it's preventing them from being able to help as many people as they otherwise would, which is a damn shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So let's talk about the first call script, because Cole Bullen, who I was talking to yesterday, the guy who went from 5K a month to 25K a month in 60 days, he still has a really big gap. And I was talking to him yesterday about it, because right now only about 40% of the emails that he's getting scheduled are committing to packages. Luckily, he's charging the correct amount and he's providing a premium service. So there's still a lot of cash flow coming into the business. But as we dug into it, he's not discussing his rates during that first phone call. He's not doing anything to pre-frame what the expectation is to get people the result that they're looking for. And for him, it's because he's afraid to talk about the money. He's afraid to bring up the costs. He feels that if I can just get them to show up and I can get my hands on them, they're going to realize that I'm worth this much and they're going to buy. Which, as we know, isn't the case, because schedulers remorse sabotages. No matter how good you do on that eval, it's going to hurt your conversion substantially if we don't have that conversation. So Ben, what do you feel like the most important piece or elements of that first phone call is, and how do you properly convey how much it's going to cost, what the expectations are, and how do we make sure that before that person shows up that they are the right person, they do understand?
Yeah, when it comes to discussing costs, there's balance to it. Because especially when it comes to like Facebook ads and people that might not know you very, very well,
Mm-hmm.
if you just tell them, if you just try and charge like 225 or $200 plus for an evaluation, you're just going to get a lot more objections because the trust isn't there yet. But at the same time, you don't want them coming in for an assessment and for a $49 assessment and then not have discussed or pre-framed what the cost afterwards is. And I think that's where people are going to get hit with, hey, I need to think about it. Once they come in for that evaluation, you're going to get hit with, oh, I need to think about it. Because they're just associating, oh, the first session was $49. You didn't give me any idea on what follow-up sessions were. I'm just assuming that they're right around that same price point. So then you're going to get hit with spouse objections, which are just a smokescreen for their true objection costs and just not being quite certain, kind of caught off guard. But then there's also the other side of the coin is you don't want to ask them to overcommit. You shouldn't be asking them to do follow-ups right then on there on the first phone call and ask them to commit to that on that. So how we do it is we state, hey, great news. Typically this evaluation is $225, but because you claimed this special offer, it's only $49, right? So it serves two purposes. One, it makes that session seem even more valuable because you've price anchored what the normal session rate actually is for the evaluation. So it gets them to see that this is the opportunity for what it is. And it's a great opportunity that they shouldn't pass on. So your conversion on that first phone call is going to go up because you are anchoring what the visit usually is. And then twofold, it serves another purpose. It gets them an idea of what your follow-up sessions are without asking them to commit to follow-up sessions as well, right? They've got an idea just by you saying that what your typical rates are. So you're going to get less people at the end of this session saying, I need to think about it, because they already heard that $200+ amount previously.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big thing with regards to discussing price on how we handle it.
Right. It's brilliant. And if you study human psychology and buyer psychology, it's actually really fascinating when you go in and figure out what's actually going on and how we're leveraging consumer behavior to overcome their objections before you even try to make the actual sale. And so, as Ben kind of said, like when we're doing this first phone call, it's all about getting all of our cards pretty much out on the table and creating the space for them to present their objections before that visit even happens. Because if they show up with these objections that they've been thinking about for days potentially, it's really hard to beat them because they probably talked to their spouse, they probably thought about it a whole lot, and they created these beliefs around what it is that they're doing. And if we don't beat those during the first call before they actually show up, it's hard to backpedal that. Ben, this is something that I know a lot of people get wrong because they don't know when to discuss rates and how to necessarily do it. Because I know if you do it too early, it sabotages the booking. So you wanna throw down some advice on that?
Yeah, we do it at the very, very end. We want to build up as much value before discussing rates because that's what it comes down to. Is you can hand out severely discounted packages on the back end, or you can learn how to do sales. Right? You just got to essentially bring that value up to justify the cost, or you can not provide a whole lot of value and bring the cost down to meet the value that you created. So during that first phone call, we want to create as much value as possible. So we do the cost at the very end. And so, yeah, we're learning about their entire story. We are building up and telling stories of other people that we've helped similar to them. So they can start they get more familiar with us from spending 15 and 20 minutes. They start to really know, like, and trust us. And because they know, like, and trust us, they're going to be much more likely to move forward with it. And then when we tell them a story of somebody similar to them, people envision themselves in stories when they're told. Right? We've done it for thousands of years, told stories, right? It's because people resonate with them, and it holds a special place when people are hearing stories, right? So we throw that in there as well. But yeah, we go as far to get them scheduled. What we do is we want to get as many micro commitments and micro yeses throughout the entire process as we possibly can. So after we go over the entire phone call, what we do is like, hey, we usually fill about 2 or 3 weeks in advance. We do have 1 or 2 other openings here available. They're X time and X time. Do either of these work for you? And then a lot of times they'll say, the great thing is if you do a good job on it, they'll just schedule. And then when you ask them, hey, what questions do you have for me? They say, no, I've got all questions, super excited. That is when you know you've hit a home run. Okay. If they state that, then you don't want these people showing up without knowing what rates are or what insurance situation is. And right. So what we do is if they're like, no, I got no questions, what we do is like, hey, great. Also wanted to keep you in the loop. Some questions have questions about cost and insurance. The first session is $49. And then we discuss how we're out of network with insurance as well. And then we just shut up. We don't ask them, oh, is that okay with you? We just state it and then be quiet and then see what they say. But if you can get through that first phone call and get them scheduled without them even asking about cost or insurance because you build up so much value, that's when you know you're doing a good job on that first phone call. So, but yeah, sometimes people, when you go to get them scheduled, they'll ask about cost and insurance. That's when you address it. So you really want to hold on to the very last portion of that phone call so you can build up as much value, and then you discuss the cost and whatnot. So
that's right. And it's very important that when you do this, you do it from the right place mentally, because we don't want to say like, hey, we got you scheduled, but I just need to warn you, or like, hey, but like we don't take insurance, but like this is how we do stuff. How you talk about it is going to determine how it's received to the person on the other end of this. If it is a warning, if it is like, hey, yeah, we don't do this, but like this, and we position it like it's a bad thing that should be considered and should be something that we expect to push people away, it's going to push people away. But if you talk about it and you in a way where it is perfectly normal and is actually to their benefit, where this is a higher level degree of service, where they're getting something that they haven't gotten to go and have before. Like if you go to a fancy restaurant and you buy $100 steak and you ask the waiter, like, hey, like, which steak of these would you recommend? Which one is your favorite? They don't point to the Wagyu and say like, yeah, but it's pretty expensive. They point to it like it's a very normal thing that most people get. And it's like a tremendous experience that people have. And so when you talk about your rates, be very cautious of the type of energy that you're talking about them with. So make sure that you truly believe in your worth and that you have normalized people paying cash within your practice. And I know this can be harder if you're a new cash practice owner and you're new to making sales like this, but the sales is just an energy exchange. And if you're nervous and if you feel like you're expensive and you feel that, people maybe should go spend their insurance, if you truly believe that, so are the people that you're going to talk to. Okay. You have to truly believe that you are worth it and that paying cash for your services at that rate is perfectly normal. Okay. So make sure you go into that with the right mentality. Anything to add on top of that part, Ben?
No, no, that's great because yeah, they're going to match your energy. If you like, do not say the word "but," right?
Right.
Like, just don't. Like, that's going to be that's where I see a lot of people. Like, so now you're just at the point where you're just trying to justify everything. So state
Right.
it and what is. So I really like the analogy of the Wagyu steak because yeah, it just doesn't happen. So why are we doing it with PT?
Right. You and I definitely like our steaks. We're gonna have to get some heifers when we meet
Yes,
up in San Diego here in a few
yes,
weeks.
yes. That'll be on the
Let's go. Cool. So the other piece of this, because I know this is a part that everyone really struggles with, and this is something that is received much better coming from you, just because you have far more experience in it with me. I just teach this stuff. Tell me about the how much is too much when it comes to talking about your rates over the phone before you actually connect with someone in person. Like, where's the line?
Yeah, so like the whole point of the phone call is to get them scheduled for that assessment while also giving them some idea of what follow-up sessions are. The goal is not to get them to commit to a package on that first session or even allude to that. That's where I also see a lot of people go wrong is they're alluding to like, hey, if you're going to come in for the session, you need to be willing to do 10 sessions, right? You do not want, while you want to pre-frame that what most patients do is between 6 to 10 sessions or 10 to 16, whatever your packages are and whatever you usually recommend, you need to state that, but you're not telling them that they need to commit to that on the phone. It's too big of an ask for just a 15-minute phone call. You need to be able to get them in person and build value. But at the same time, you don't want to not talk about it at all either, because then they're going to be blindsided and that's what you're going to get hit with. I need to think about it, spousal objections, like we talked about before.
That's right. And the way to think about it is you want to share it within the context of the story. So when you tell them that, hey, I'm really, really confident that, I can help you because we help CrossFitters with their shoulder pain literally every single week. We've seen hundreds of cases of this and we know that we're able to get people out of it. And so just so you're aware, if this issue is what I think it is, it's probably going to take 10 sessions to not only solve this problem for good, but also help you achieve your goal that we just talked about. So I'm not saying that we're going to need this many sessions, but just so you know, once you come in, I'm just going to give you the answers that you've been looking for and confirm if this is what I think it is. But just be aware, if this is to get where you're trying to go, it's likely going to take 6 sessions. Would you agree that that's kind of how to lay it down?
Yeah, exactly. Position what most people want out of that first session is answers and a game plan. That is
Right.
what you're selling on that phone call. Is you are going to lay out what the exact problem is and give them a game plan to do it, right? And
Yep.
then you can discuss at the end of that first session whether or not to move forward with that game plan. But that's all people want. Like we have on our evaluation accelerator form, vast majority of people put in there like, hey, what would make this first session a success to you? Oh, I want answers and a game plan, right? Across the board, that's what we see more often than not. Okay, and that's what you should be also asking people when they come in for the first session. Hey, what is the number one thing that you want to accomplish during this session? They're going to tell you the same
Right.
thing vast majority of the time. Okay, know what's
Right.
going on and a game plan.
Right. And if you're listening to this and it's like, oh my goodness, that is scary. I don't like talking about money. Ask yourself what is more uncomfortable, talking about money up front and potentially repelling someone who wasn't a good fit anyway, or having not only a slot taken up on your calendar where you are wasting your time, but you are wasting their time because they're not going to get the help that they need and they're going to have to go do this whole thing again with somebody else. And so you're just wasting a tremendous amount of time, and the opportunity cost is tremendous if you don't have this discussion on the front end. Make it normal, make it exciting, make it a new experience that they haven't had. We should probably do a full episode just on first call psychology and how to build connections and turn skeptics into bookings and all that. But let's keep it focused around scheduler's remorse. We talked about marketing. We talked about the first phone call and properly setting those expectations. The last piece is the onboarding component to it. And this is where most people drop the ball. because people are so focused on generating new sale or generating new leads and generating new sales that they forget all about the fulfillment. And when I say fulfillment, I don't just mean what happens when they walk in the door. There's a tremendous amount of time that happens between you just talked to them and they scheduled and the time that they actually showed up. And every single time, every single day, every single time they think about that appointment, they're thinking and looking for red flags on reasons why they shouldn't show up. This is probably the first time they've ever committed to paying cash for healthcare services. And they're skeptical if they just got duped by good salesmanship on paying cash for something that they could get for free elsewhere. And so, how do we combat that fear that is inherent within all human beings when they commit to something that's new? Well, we can start by thinking through it logically. Okay. If we truly are different and the our ability or the ability for us to make sales and get patients to commit to packages relies on our ability to show them that we can give them a better outcome than they can get elsewhere and give them a better experience than they've ever had, well, then we need to be able to very, very quickly make them feel that we are different than what they've already tried in the past. So if our onboarding process feels the exact same as what they had at some outpatient, mill clinic, then they're going to assume that this is the same thing that they just went through, and why would they pay cash for that? And so the onboarding experience, how they are welcomed as a new patient, the intake paperwork that we give them, the way that we follow up with them to confirm their appointment, all of these touch points are crucial in helping validate them for making the right decision. Because again, it's not enough for your treatment style to be world class. Every other touch point in between, how we're making people feel in between those moments, is equally as important. Because if it feels like what they've had in the past, you're not even going to have an opportunity to show them how different you are and how good you are. Because it's not just about how good you are in the visit. A lot of you are basing your skills based off of the outcome that you can get people. But that is after 10 visits. There's a tremendous amount of time for people to drop off before that happens. And so we really have to design our onboarding process and our experience with intention. So when we're talking about patient onboarding, Ben, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
First thing that comes to mind is how we went about designing it. We went about designing our process in the way that if somebody else went somewhere else, it would absolutely embarrass our competition. That's what it comes down to. When we built it, I'm in the assumption that, hey, when they get off the phone with us, they might be calling around to another clinic. And I want to completely embarrass that clinic because I know what their experience are. And then I want that patient to be able to compare it to ours. And so if you call, and I encourage you guys to do this, I've said this on other episodes too, call around to your other kind of competition in the area and see and pretend to be a new patient. We do this almost yearly, where we call around to see like, hey, has anybody updated their process? And it's the same shit every single year. You call, hey, I'm looking to schedule a physical therapy session. Yeah, what's your name, date of birth, insurance information? Not, hey, what's your name? Can we actually help you? And whatnot too. So just by us taking the time to really listen to people and really hone in on that first phone call, that alone is just going to really separate you from the competition. That alone. There's a lot of other things that go into it, but that is a great place to start. Because this can be a very lackluster experience because, they're going to be like, well, that last clinic just spent 15, 20 minutes truly showing that they cared. This other clinic clearly showed that they couldn't care less about me and just even ask for my name, just wanted name, date of birth, and insurance information, not whether they could actually help. So that's also something I encourage you guys to do when you are designing your experience, your patient experience. Think about the competition. How can you absolutely embarrass them? Okay. So that's first and foremost. When we get off the phone with them, there's also scheduled remorse for that evaluation, not just from the evaluation to plan of care. And so we want to make sure that we help them confirm in their mind that they just made the right decision. So immediately when we get off that phone, within a phone call with them, within the first 1 or 2 minutes, we are sending them a recap of the phone call so that we can show that we actually truly listen to them and congratulate them. So first thing we say is like, we congratulate them. Hey, Ms. Smith, great speaking with you and congrats on taking the first step to getting back to X, Y, and Z. We're pre-framing the goal. We're not highlighting, first step to getting out of pain. No, we're stating taking the first step to getting back to be able to do that half marathon that you've been wanting to do for the last 2 years, right? Now we relate that back on that first session. Because guess what? If they call the other clinic, they might not even know what injury they're dealing with, let alone that they want to get back to half marathon. Okay.
Right.
So on the
Just
first
smash them
phone call,
into the schedule.
exactly. We're just splitting them. So we congratulate them because that's the thing too, is sometimes people wait years to take action on it. And this is actually scheduling something when they haven't taken action on scheduling or taking that first step to getting this solved. It is a big step for them. It may seem like a very small step to us, but it can be a very big step to them. So we congratulate them on taking that first step. And then we say, hey, we're looking super excited to work with you on X time, X date. Keep an eye out for the evaluation accelerator form to complete before your session so we can get even more treatment on that first session. If you have any questions between now and X time, you've got our phone number. You can shoot us a text, give us a call, and we're happy to answer any questions that might pop up between now and your first session. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you X time, X date. Right.
Yeah.
So that's in the text that we send. And that's just going to immensely help them confirm, because no other clinic is sending a text recapping that information, congratulating them, and confirming their appointment in that way. So that's the first big step. I'll go into others, but anything to add on to that?
I love that one because that's one we don't actually talk about a lot. Where it's like, yeah, we have an excellent first call script that gets them to book, that gets them to understand what is expected to them to get the actual result. But that little offboarding piece, that little transition to the onboarding experience, I think that's brilliant in hooking that to the end goal that we know darn well that anyone else that they call after this, if they do kind of backpedal, no one's going to even know that that's their goal or what their problem is. They're just going to get them in for a visit. Brilliant. Okay. The next component to this is what most people do is they add them into their EHR, and then their EHR sends them their intake paperwork, which is almost always the same generic crap that everybody hates filling out. And instead, what we need to do is, again, as Ben said, we want to absolutely embarrass any other potential competitor that this prospect might go to. This means that everything we do needs to be world class, not just our sales, but our intake paperwork, our welcoming messaging, and how we actually greet patients also needs to be world class. So that if they decide that they're not going to commit to a package today, maybe they just commit to another visit, they want to go explore somewhere else, we want them to feel that every single touch point that they have is inferior to what it is that we do. And that is why we are premium and why we're able to charge what it is that we charge. So with our intake paperwork, Ben, tell us a little bit about how we do our intake and what we actually call it and how we frame it for patients.
Yeah, so this actually stemmed from an upset patient. And I encourage you guys, whenever you have a setback in business, look at it as a way to get insight into how you can improve things. And so we had a patient that was upset after her first assessment and said that she essentially felt like most of the session was just talking during that first half, and that we didn't even get into much treatment. Well, she didn't complete her intake forms. At the time, we just called it intake forms. And we just told people, oh, we'll be sending out the intake forms, make sure to complete it, yada, yada. Well, this lady didn't complete her intake form, and she had an extensive medical history, lots of things going on. And so we're like, how can we motivate people to actually complete this dang thing? Right? Because that was the root issue, was she did not complete it. But we couldn't say that was the issue. We owned it and whatnot. But so I was like, how can we motivate people to do this? And the reasons that they don't complete is they don't see what they get out of it by doing it, right? So on the phone call, we reiterate at the end, hey, I'll be sending over our evaluation accelerator form. So we changed the wording from intake form to evaluation accelerator form. So we state, like, I'll be sending over the evaluation accelerator form. So this will allow us by you completing it, it will help speed up that evaluation process so we can get even more treatment on that first session. That's what people want, is they want that evaluation process to be sped up so they can get as much out of their session, get as much treatment as possible to get this pain under control on that first session, right? And so that's what they get out of it. And since we've done that, it's increased substantially the amount of people that complete the intake form or evaluation accelerator form and whatnot. So and also by completing that evaluation accelerator form, we're able to get better idea of what's truly motivating them because of the questions that we ask on this evaluation accelerator form. It's not just, oh, circle where it hurts, where did it start? Yes, some of that's included, but the vast majority, the second half of it is like, hey, what is the number one thing that you want to accomplish on this first session? If we could absolutely hit a home run with you on this, with your time with us, what does that look like? If, a year from now, looking back on your progress, what has had to have happened for you to be ecstatic about your time working with us, and what would it be viewed as a success, right?
Mhm.
And then we ask them, hey, everybody needs a why. When the going gets tough, what is your why? What is the number one reason for why you're doing this, right? And so then you can use that during that sales process to really get an understanding of what's truly motivating them, instead of having to really tease it out in direct communication. Yes, you still want to do that, but you can do more piercing questions and dive deeper on these questions. Like, hey, Ms. Smith, I saw that you said that your why is X. Tell me more about that. Why is that your why? Right. And you get to 3 to 5 layers deep on that. So it's really been a multitude of benefits to having that called the evaluation sort of form, and getting people to complete it and have it formulated the way it is.
That's right. Because now their identities are at stake because we understand what drives them. They're not trying to just be able to be back in the gym. They're trying to be more active, present, and energized parents. Like we have to fully, deeply understand people, and by asking these questions and actually caring about it, it builds a stronger emotional bond between the two individuals, which obviously makes them like, why would they want to like sever this bond that they just created to go try to redo the emotional work that they just went through to establish that? And so, yeah, it's a really, really powerful thing when you ask your prospects questions that they haven't been asked before, which forces them to change the way that they think physical therapy is done, potentially change their beliefs around what can actually be accomplished through working together based off of maybe the preconceived notion of what physical therapy is. So, yeah. Eval accelerator form, absolute game changer with compliance and getting that done, as well as the energy and the level of intention that patients show up to their visit with, because we just framed not only what it is that they're going to get out of this entire thing, we help them reanalyze like why they're doing this, what they've tried, and why specifically what we're doing is actually going to be different for them. And so they just come in with an entirely different mentality. So the intake paperwork, huge. Actually, I should stop calling it intake paperwork myself. Like, remove that from your vocabulary. It is evaluation accelerator forms. Okay, make it a benefit-driven title, and actually make sure that there is benefit that the patient gets out of it by giving them more clarity around what it is that you do and what they've had going on in their lives. Next, once you do the eval, the next piece is giving them validation for actually sharing that bit of information with you. So what we do is we have the PTs and all of our clients that do this as well. Is once they receive that intake information, their treating PT will review it and then actually send a text message, a personalized text message to that individual, letting them know, it's like, hey, got your intake paperwork, looked it over, and reaffirm their confidence that, hey, we can absolutely help with this. It sounds a lot like things that I've already helped with. Can't wait to see you Wednesday. And that just adds a layer of personalization that nobody else does. And so that just really reinforces their decision and gets them much more excited to show up, because you kind of broke the ice. They're not just showing up and talking to a stranger anymore. They had this touch point. They were vulnerable with us in their intake, and we acknowledge that. The worst thing you can do is if someone opens up to you and shares details of their life, is to do nothing with it. Okay, that's we've all maybe had that happen in our lives when we maybe opened up to somebody and it wasn't received the way that that it should have been, and that doesn't feel good for anybody. So if your treating PT can not only observe that but also build their confidence that this even gets me more excited that they're coming in, it's just going to be received so well. And then to put the icing on the cake, if you have whiteboards, I would recommend buying them if you don't. And for each new patient that you have next, write their name on the board, write their goal on the board, so that when they actually show up for their visit, all of their fears, all of their suspicions that, man, these people can't be that good, they can't care this much, are completely eradicated. Because once they see that name up on that board, they know that you've genuinely been thinking about them this whole time, and that you've actually done your homework and you're actually prepared to get them the goal that they've had for potentially years that no one else was able to get them. And if you can do those three things, nail the marketing, so we're bringing in the right folks, nail the first call script, pre-frame the packages, create a eval acceleration process. It's more of an experience than a hassle for your patients. And then confirm and validate them and thank them for sharing that information with you. Then drive it all home by just writing a name up on a board. If you can do those things, you're going to sell a heck of a lot more cash packages. Ben, anything to add to that?
No, this is especially for those that struggle with no shows. It's people. Somebody would have to be kind of heartless. Like we have I think we get maybe one. We have over 250 to 300 patients come through our doors every single month. We have maybe one or two no shows an entire quarter, if that. And the thing is people would have to be kind of heartless to no show somebody that has spent 15, 20 minutes on the phone call with them, sent them a personalized text recapping everything that they just told them, show that they're actively listening. And then on top of it, get a personalized text the day before their session from the treating physical therapist that they're excited to work with them. Somebody would be pretty heartless to just no show an appointment after that much effort has been already conveyed and showed. And again, part of the sales process is weeding the wrong people's out. If they are going to no show, you're better off not doing that appointment anyways. So we don't even view some of our these very few no shows that happen as actually negatives because it weeded out the wrong people. There's no way, in my opinion, that somebody can be that heartless or inconsiderate of somebody's time that put that much effort into. So if you're dealing with no shows, this is a great way to also combat a lot of it.
I love it. And with that, folks, we are done with this episode. We will be back next week, Thursday. But if you got value out of this, drop value if you're catching us live on YouTube or on Facebook. But if you are listening to this on Spotify or any of our other podcasting platforms, I want you to like and subscribe to this channel for more advice on how to build wealth, improve health, and give back to our communities as a cash physical therapist. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Later.
Yes.